Hey, the other day I made a video about English Christmas traditions that I find unusual, and I mentioned that Santa Claus has become popular in my country in the last 20 years or so. I got a lot of questions about that, so in today's video I will shed some light on this matter. It is going to be a very fairy tale-like video because I bet that you had no idea that there was another Santa Claus-like character that does not live in Finland but in Russia. Before I was born, Christmas was kind of banned both in Russia and my country, and people were not allowed to celebrate it, as it was considered to be a religious holiday. I don't really know how to explain this to you because it sounds crazy even to me, but this is how it was back then. So people were allowed to celebrate New Year instead. My country was under a lot of Russian influence at the time, so they have kind of imported the Russian version of Santa that in Russian is called Ded Moroz or Dedu Mraz in my language, which means Grandfather Frost, and he's kind of different from Santa. He comes on New Year's Eve and gives presents to everyone, not only the kids. His sleigh is pulled by 3 horses and does not fly. Instead of Mrs. Santa and the elves, he has this young girl that helps him. Her name is Snegurочка, loosely translated as Snow Maiden or Snow White, as we call her in my country, not to be mixed up with Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, of course. What can I say? Lucky Grandpa Frost. Some claim that she's his granddaughter, but I'm not really sure about this one. He wears a long, heel-length coat with fluffy trims that isn't always red. Sometimes he wears blue, like Santa in the Pepsi's commercials, or even white, but his coat is always blazing with lots of silver stars or snowflakes. His head is round and looks more like a crown than a Christmas hat. There are no pom-poms whatsoever, there are only fluffy trims. He wears felt fluffy boots on his feet and walks through the snow using a long magic staff. And Snow White always wears a silver blue dress, really glittery, and a furry hat or a blue tiara-like hat with silver snowflakes all over. Grandpa Frost comes to visit on New Year's Eve and brings presents. He does not squeeze through any tight chimneys, he does not sneak during the night, stepping on toys left on the floor and tripping into the dark. No, Grandpa Frost rings the bell. Also, he and Snow White used to come to our kindergarten parties and bring us presents. It was so cool when we were like 5 or 6 years old. Back in the day, I mean in the beginning of the 20th century in my country, fairy tales and stories used to call the jolly old man both Grandfather Christmas, which is our way of calling Santa, or Grandfather Frost. He was considered to be the same character. The influence of the Western culture has brought Grandfather Christmas, or as you know him, Santa Claus, back to my country, so now Grandpa Frost has been largely forgotten. In Russia, they still try to keep the tradition alive. He's actually rather popular. Ded Moroz and Snegurочка still appear at many kids' parties around the winter holidays, and they're now making the story more interesting by telling the kids that Ded Moroz fights the wicked witch Baba Yaga, who tries to steal the presents. Our fathers have dressed up as Grandpa Frost a lot. I have so many stories from back then. My parents have these friends, their kids and I grew up together closer than if I actually had any brothers or sisters. So their father used to dress up like Grandpa Frost and come to our house, and my father used to go to theirs, so we won't recognize them. One New Year's Eve, their father actually scared one of our neighbors while all dressed up in red with a big white beard. Some guy got out of the elevator and he almost jumped back as he didn't expect to see Grandpa Frost casually waiting for the elevator to come. Must have been really funny. There was this transitional period in my country when people did not know what to do with both those guys, and kids received presents from Santa on Christmas morning and a present, or at least some candy during the last years of his existence, from Grandpa Frost on New Year's Eve. So the kids were kinda really happy. They received presents twice during the Christmas holidays. A few years later, no one remembered Grandpa Frost anymore. Everyone was waiting for Santa Claus instead, but because of his mere existence, we can't really get used to all the traditions related to Santa, like leaving snacks for him on the kitchen table, and I really doubt that many people in my country can name all of the reindeers. That's, yeah, more of a Western tradition. And I sometimes still catch myself saying Grandpa Frost instead of Santa because being a kid that has lived through that transition, I have them all mixed up and I don't really make the difference anymore. To be honest, it was really interesting even for me to do this little research and learn a few new things about this tradition. Tell me what you think about Grandpa Frost in the comment section below. It will be really interesting to read your thoughts on him. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with more Vlogmas. Bye!